Cricket for Americans, C-Fam. How are you doing? Nick here.
Gabe.
And we are excited to be able to bring to you our 6th episode review of the test. And this is when the test makes a shift in the series because you have the punishments are over. You have Warner and Smith back on the team. And if you're Justin Langer, and I thought he handled it pretty well. I thought the players handled it well. I thought the returning players handled it well. If you're Justin Langer, you can't help but be overjoyed with the idea that you have more guys to work with, top-level guys. From my understanding, David Warner, he is a serious batsman. Obviously, Steve Smith is one of the best in the business. And so you're getting these two high-caliber, high-class guys to add to Aaron Finch, to add to Nathan Lyon on the bowling side, and to have a serious run as they're going into their World Cup for ODIs going into that part of the season. They have some of the two best guys on their field. And you have this interesting thing that I thought there was more of it the first time I watched this episode. It must be in the 7th episode. There's more of it. But you have a situation where the fans, how are they going to respond to these two guys coming back? In this episode, there was definitely a mention of it. There was Justin Langer, which I thought he was being a little too defensive when he said, you guys never made a mistake. Give these guys a break. These guys cheated in a game that people hold so dear to their hearts. These guys flat out were part of that scandal. They're not going to be welcomed back with open arms from the opposing fans. You've got to expect that. But it wasn't as bad as I anticipated it would be. But, what these guys did, like it or not, whether they're responsible enough, they took responsibility. They were part of it. And as we have learned in cricket, these laws that you break, there's serious punishment. So I was kind of a little disappointed for the first time by Justin Langer's comments. I understand these are his guys. This is his team. But you've got to expect that's going to happen.
I couldn't disagree with you more. As a coach, no matter what, you fight for your guys, okay? Even if you're wrong. I'll tell you all day long. Same thing as a teammate. I'll tell you all day long in the confines of the locker room in privacy how wrong you are. But to the world, we got to show a united front. So I love the fact that Justin Langer went out there and fought for his guys. And I was like, no, come on. Again, who hasn't made a mistake? Okay, yes, what they did was wrong. And again, they paid for it with their 1-year ban. But he, I think, handled it the right way. Same thing, too. As a coach, you also it's a delicate balance. You got a team who, for all intents and purposes, for the last year has gelled well. There's chemistry amongst these players now, and they've been playing well. And now you got the two returning players coming back. That could throw up, upset the apple cart. It could throw off the chemistry, and I think he still handled it well. Like, look, they're going to have to earn their spots back on the team. They're going to have to, show up like everybody else, work hard. That's my personal opinion.
But I'm not saying that you don't defend your guys. I'm not saying that you don't protect those guys. I'm not saying you go on media and live television and bash these guys for what they did. I'm not saying that at all. It's the comment he made where he seemed genuinely so surprised and so disgusted with people treating them the way they treated when they returned. I understand being a little defensive about that, but I just feel like in that situation, it's a delicate situation. It had nothing to do with him because he wasn't the coach at that time.
Right.
I am just a little surprised because this guy's been honest with his guys when he's talking in these confessionals to the producers and cameramen of this show. Right. I'm a little surprised that he seemed a little taken back by the response. What I'm saying is, as a manager, as a coach, you got to prepare for any kind of situation. And you have to know that this is going to happen. And it's okay. We don't care about the noise outside. We care about the guys in our room, in our locker, and on our field, and that's all we can control. That's all I'm trying to say.
And I respect your opinion. But me personally, I liked how he handled it. With that being said, sometimes perception, bro, is really such a nuanced thing. And I say that because at the very beginning, at least for me, I loved Steve Smith's interaction with the team. He seemed remorseful. He's like, man, I didn't even know. There were times I didn't know if I wanted to come back to the game. And even at the very beginning, the first episode of Test, this guy was up there on the stand bawling, crying. You know what I mean? Grown man. He seemed remorseful. And sometimes that goes a long way. For me, Warner was like, "Oh, I don't feel like I've been away from the game that long. I feel like I jumped back up in." Like his attitude was almost too cavalier, where he was almost not even acknowledging what had happened. You know what I'm
See, it's
saying?
interesting. I feel the exact opposite. I thought David Warner, you got to protect yourself. You got to know you're going in under fire. And so you got to hold that kind of confidence. I took, at least the way they filmed it with Steve Smith, I took his reaction to almost as if like he was hurt that something was done to him when he wasn't responsible at all. And by him saying, I was even considered not even coming back in the first place. Now he's saying that because he had an injury too that he's like, once I got that that bandage or that cast off, then I started getting more serious about it. But to me, I kind of took it as like not the best attitude. Like, I want to hear that you were dying inside. I want to hear that you were fighting to get back. I want to hear that you understand that even though you're so great, that it's a privilege to be on this team. And I don't want to hear that you were considering not coming back. I understand if he's being vulnerable, he's being serious. But when he came back, he seemed very stone-faced. I wasn't sure I wanted to come back until Reese. It came off to me as if he was saying, like, I'm doing you guys a favor to be able to come back. I didn't like that. I like Steve Smith a lot. I like him in the rest of the series. But I did not like his approach when he came back.
That is so weird. But you know what? Again, that's where different perspectives, you can show two people the same exact picture and they may see two different interpretations of it. You know what I'm saying? Of the same exact scene. And to me, again, I just felt like Warner was so cavalier, like he's putting it behind him. He didn't even acknowledge what had happened. Where Steve Smith was, it was so devastating, I almost didn't want to come back. You know what I'm saying? And to me, that's how I read it. But again, different strokes for different folks. We have different opinions, and that's good that we have this conversation. You could see that obviously Warner has his contingent of fans, and Steve Smith's going to have his contingent of fans, and how different people are going to look at it from different perspectives. With that being said, though, I loved how JL handled it. I would have done the same thing. I'm going to go out there, and before anybody says anything about my players, I would have even gone one further and not even made them defend themselves. I would have been out there defending them. You know what I'm saying? I would have been the one saying, not Steve Smith wouldn't have had to say, like, he wasn't one out there tampering with balls. Yeah, he was a captain at the time, so he was responsible. Ultimately, this guy wasn't the one actually cheating. You know what I mean? I would have gone, even though JL wasn't the guy that was coaching at the time, let the media come down on me, because players don't need to deal with media. You know what I'm saying? As a coach, I think you should also serve to insulate players from that outside noise. But again, I loved what Justin Langer did. I personally would have taken it even further.
I just feel like, these are grown men. They make their own decisions. They got to deal with the consequences. But at the same time, this is something that happened a year before this moment in time in the show. It's in the past. It's done with. The punishments were served. I mean, there's no there's no court case open still. They're not on trial still for what they did or did not do. It's done. So we got to move on. And, again, your play is going to speak for itself. The fans, they're going to come back. And I feel, honestly, I don't know much about the scandal world of cricket, but it seemed like this was a pretty big scandal. It seems like as we get farther into the series, that these guys are, especially Steve Smith, are embraced by a lot of the opposing fans, which to me, I was really surprised by that. But I think if you shed more light on it, if you take that step further, then you're just bringing it back. And again, you got to understand there's a lot of people who have a lot of passion for the sport that are paying for tickets, that are paying for merchandise. You don't want to tick them off even more. I understand as a coach, you're not the business side of it. You're worrying about your team. Right. But I'm not sure what the advantages are of going on that offensive for your players when it's already said and done. Let's just move forward. If the media keeps bringing it up, then yes, you can say, hey, we're done with that. We're moving forward. I don't care about that. But I wouldn't go a step further. But again, different opinions for different people. Right. This episode was interesting because we see how this team is completely different with these two additions. And you see that David Warner, he had some struggles at first. They bring in Ricky Ponting to help be an advisor, and he's so excited to be there with the guys. And they have, the first few matches, the team's doing pretty good, but David Warner is kind of struggling. He had that situation where he got Aaron Finch out, and he felt really bad about that. And he made that comment where he said, I'm afraid of getting out. And Ricky Ponting, I mean, this guy seems like a fiery guy.
I love
He's
Ricky
like,
Ponting.
forget that, man. He's like, that is the worst attitude to have. You don't worry about that. You go out there and use your talent and do what you got to do. You got to stop worrying about that. That's not what we do here in Australia cricket.
And I love Ricky Ponting's comment. He was like, listen, what do you have to lose? Okay. We don't have the Ashes. We don't have anything right now. Okay. We're not even expected to come in here and win. And then, to his credit, the one thing I did like that Warren said, he was like, when I started thinking about it like that way and I let that in, I was like, yeah, what do I have to lose? And then that's when he went out there and played much better. Like you said, these guys are absolute studs. I mean, this would be the equivalence of going to the best Yankee or best Dodger or best whatever team and taking out their 3-4 hitters, their best play hitters on the team, because Steve Smith's a monster and so is Warren. You even see that some of the players we've grown to love lost their spots. Like I even felt a little kind of way about it because I'm like, oh, what about my boy Uzi? And Uzi's still playing, but they moved him down in the lineup. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? But it is what it is.
Did you see those glasses he was rocking in that one team meeting?
I love Usman. I love the style, man. This guy's out of control. But, with that being said, I love Ricky Ponting. And that's why can he speak to players like that? Because he's played, because he's been in the trenches, and players are going to be receptive to it. I love JL's comment. He says, I never went to Harvard, but I employ a lot of guys that did. You know what I mean? And he surrounds himself around a lot of smart players and a lot of smart people that are part of the game, that understand the game. Look at his staff. Most of his staff are former players or have been around the game. Don't bring in these guys that have no experience and are just reading off a chart. Well, this is what's supposed to happen. Even though they use sabermetrics, which is what we call it.
I was going to say, there's a place for that in any sport.
Because he says, the research shows us that left-handers get these guys out. So obviously there's a place for sabermetrics or research in all sports. However, you got to go with your gut, okay? What's your gut tell you? You got to say, okay, I'm here to coach. And even though it might say that left-handers get this guy out, if my best guy's a right-hander, I'm going to throw my right-hander out there. You know what I mean? You got to be able to let coaches make those decisions. With that being said, man, this episode absolutely killed me. Like you said, this is the show that, man, just when you're feeling good for Australia, they go up, and then they get, oh my, and that's honestly, the world of sports is such a roller coaster ride. And wow, these guys, the injury bug destroyed them here. First of all, in practice, you lose Uzi's backup. In practice.
Talk about practice, man.
Practice. But I've seen guys get hurt in practice. It happens, okay? Because you're not going have speed for the most part. You're not trying to really injure anybody else, but you're going against full contact. Anything could happen, a freak injury. And bro, I knew the minute it hit his arm, the way you saw his arm go dead like that, I've seen that in baseball. I said, oh, that dude's wrist is broken. You know what I mean?
Not
right away.
Like that, but if it was Stark, right, where he said, Stark, like, I didn't like my last ball that I bowled. I wanted to end the day on a good note, so I decided to just throw one more. And that decision, I mean, he seems so remorseful. A lot of guys, a lot of girls that I know, something like that happened in the workplace, something equivalent, they'd be like, oh, not my problem. But, I mean, he seems seriously remorseful. And it's a freak thing, and it's like, what's going on? But, the cool thing about this episode is there was a lot of highs. They saved that low for the very end, which, it's good storytelling. It really is. But these guys, this team, and we're going way ahead of ourselves. That's okay. These guys are in the World Cup tournament, so to speak.
Against England. Oh, I hate England.
They're winning. And they're winning. And they're winning. And they get themselves to the semifinal, the final four. And it's like the first few episodes of this series were focused on the test matches, but look at where this team has come since the scandal. And now they're the final four in the World Cup. And I mean, and they had won 5 of the last 6 or 4 of the last 5. But where they came from to where they were, everything was clicking. It was amazing. But that final match, and that final match was against England, right?
Yeah.
That they lost. That final match, I mean, everything that could go wrong, it went wrong. The batters were getting out too quick. The balls were ricocheting off and going to people's gloves. You had injuries beforehand. You had Usman injured during the game. You had the bowlers who weren't able to get certain guys out. I mean, But they were so optimistic. They weren't giving up beforehand. Their mind had shifted to, okay, now it's our turn to bowl. We can get these guys out. We are known for our bowling. Let's go for it. It just didn't happen.
Bro, I think, and that's probably why I say this, from day one, I've said, I love Uzi. I love his temperament. That's the kind of guy I was, fiery, you know what I mean? And I love Uzi. He's an honest guy. And even to his credit, man, when the other players came in, we're talking about Warner and we're talking about Steve Smith, and he got dropped in the lineup, even though he's the one been carrying this team for the most part, along with Finch once he, got right, and other players, okay, I got dropped, no complaint. He's a true team player. If I go out, let me go out on my feet. You never want to go out on your back. Let me lose this game. Bro, he lost his opportunity for the World Cup to an injury, and that's like just the worst thing. And it was just a hamstring pop, and it's crazy because he was just like, I've seen this guy the entire test series. Like, I've been such a fan, and he's his bravado. Bro, this guy was crying. And he said, it's the first time I've ever cried in my life, in the locker room.
Sports,
Time I've ever, but it wasn't, it was just like, this is not like this. Not like this. Let me go out swinging. Let me get cut, but not to an injury. Not like this. You know what I mean? And that was like, I got goosebumps right now when he said that. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was just, and then Justin Langer, let's talk about feeling bad for him. He loses Uzi. Guess what? His backup broke his arm the day before. So then now that's like the third string guy. It's like, are you kidding me? And then this is when my hate developed. Of course, you got a third string guy in there, and I love this kid's attitude. Oh, what's his name? Marsh or
I think Marsh was the guy that got injured. I can't remember the guy's name.
I can't remember the kid's name, but they bring him in, and of course, Jeffrey Archer, first ball, bro, boom, right under the chin. The kid is leaking, blood coming out. His head is bandaged up, and he's just thinking to himself, this is the first time I've gotten to play. I've been staying ready for this opportunity. I wasn't coming out no matter what. And the kid went out and played well. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna do it. But of course, they came up short at the end. We already alluded to that, and they lose. But just that, I became a fan of that kid, because imagine, he's not a starter. He doesn't get a lot of reps. He doesn't get to play all the time. First time you get to go up against a world-class talent like Jeffrey Archer. Oh, and he gives you a little welcome, welcome to the big kid, right? Little sweet chin music got you leaking. Oh my gosh. I'm like, come on, Archer, give him, you know what I mean? Like, first ball, really? Like, oh, that's why, but I mean, that's just who this guy is, and that's why he's so respected as a bowler. But man, this episode tore me up. Like, can Australia get a break, for the love of Pete?
Oh. But I like it because that's life. This is real. This is a documentary style, but that's how life goes. The more you talk about Archer, I think the more of a fan I become of his. I mean, honestly, by the time we're done with these reviews, I'm probably going to be the biggest fan of Archer out there, because I love his mentality. I love his approach and his fearlessness. But
doesn't he remind you of Randy Johnson? I'm sorry to go off track, but I always do in baseball, the big unit. The guy that came in, and every time you came in, you forget as a batter that I want to hit, and you just want to walk out of this at bat alive. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what Archer is. He's that guy that comes in and you forget about, hey, I want to go for 6 here. I'm trying to go for a century here. And you're just like, can I make it through this over? You know what I'm saying?
I think Archer has a little more personality than the big unit had, but there's some similarities for sure. But this show is so captivating. I honestly did not think, as much as I liked it the first time, I did not think I'd want to watch it again. And watching it again is like watching the first time. I mean, it's not boring at all. It's so interesting. You get to learn about these guys. You get to learn about their feeling. I thought there was a really funny random joke in there when they were talking about how we got to be closer. We got to be together. We may not all have Zampas and Stoy in this relationship, but we still got to be friends. I thought that was a cool little dig at their, odd relationship that we had mentioned earlier, odd but cool.
Right.
It's cool to get to know these guys. It's cool that they are themselves. There's a few guys that they had mentioned. I forget their names, but like the tall, lengthy bowler in earlier World Cup games that they had won, he was able to get a few wickets. He did really good. They had to go against India again, and they were able to pass that test. I mean, there was a lot of highlights in this episode. There's that one low light, but as this show goes on, without spoiling too much, and I'm pretty sure everyone that watches reviews have already seen the test at least once, it foreshadows losing to England in that match. And I'm pretty sure England won the World Cup that year. Losing to England, they're going to have another chance at England later on in the series, which is really cool. Yeah. But those are my thoughts on this episode. There's a lot going on when you have mixed emotions with these guys coming back. Not to mention, like, we're a team right now. Like, I know you're Steve Smith and David Warner, but we have been here. We have paid the price. I mean, that was the thing I was thinking about when I first watched this. We have had to pay the price in many ways for your decision in that, your participation in that scandal. And we have suffered. We have gone through it. And yes, we want you back in our team, but you're going to take two people's spots away. And we've been fighting tooth and nail to try to keep this afloat. So it's an interesting dynamic. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's a business decision. You were going to take Steve Smith and David Warner all day long and make those tough business decisions. But man, I mean, it's a tough, awkward situation. The cameras are in there. People have a chance to not completely be real, but it seemed like the players, they were able to handle it maturely. I want to say there was some of the looks on the faces when they were first talking to Warner and Smith when they were back in the locker room. There was a few faces that were like, okay, you better say something to convince me that, you know, we're still good to go. But Gross, I mean, great episode.
Some of the guys just disappeared. Tim Payne, you know, was non-existent.
I don't think he's on there.
He's not
ODI
on this
team.
He's not on the ODI team. He's on the test team, but he should still be somewhere in there. You know what I mean? At least one of the voices. He's been the captain that's really stewarded the ship. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, and he was non-existent. The fact that he's not on the ODI team, you're like, oh, okay. You know, with that being said, think about this. In any sport, and I did allude to this, it's hard to go away for a couple of months and come back. That's why in baseball, you finish playing and then you got to have spring training before you get back into baseball, because it takes you 30, 40 games just to get right again, get your arm into shape, be able to get your timing down batting. In football, you have mini camps. Why? Because it's hard to take off. You know, same thing in basketball. You have preseason in almost every sport, because just taking off just the regular off season before you go back is a long time. These guys took a year off and both went for centuries like it was nothing, okay? When we talk about talent, let's just talk about how talented these guys are, that they walk in, they're still in rare form. Like you alluded, Warren had a little bit of an issue at first, but then he was going for centuries like it wasn't even anything. Like it was nothing. Steve Smith act like he never stepped away a day from the game. Like, wow, these guys are talented to be able to do that. I tell you right now, Trey is really rough because he plays both football and baseball. So for him, it takes him a little time to ramp up right after every season, because some kids play baseball year round. You know what I'm saying? And he has to take some time off. So I know that struggle of getting your arm back in shape, getting your timing back, batting. And these guys, it didn't seem like it fazed them at all to be away from the game, you know, to lose a year of their prime. So I just wanted to comment why they were accepted back to the team and why Justin Langer was like, look, I don't care what controversy comes with them. To your point, you're right. It's a business decision. These guys aren't just aren't good players. They are world-class players.
Well, and JL said when he saw Steve Smith batting, he was just like, man, this guy's on our team. This is amazing.
Oh man, but I love this episode, guys. Sorry it took so long. We were doing all other types of recording going on, things we wanted to do, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it was worth your while. If you haven't seen it in a while, watch it. All right, shout out to my boy Uzi. Oh, Uzman, I love him, man. You know what I'm saying? This guy, he was a team.
Team Archer.
But yeah, let us know in the comments what you think. And again, if there's something else you guys want us to react, there's only 2 episodes left of the test. After this, let us know. We're gonna be thinking about a new series to go into as far as this type of format. But anything else, Nick?
Until next time.
That's 6 runs.